from Caroola Farm. Now they are co-owners of the farm. It's family owned, permaculture-based and beyond organic. Caroola is a local market farm and informational outreach in the New South Wales Southern Tablelands. Caroola Farm provides healthy and nutritious, locally produced and organically grown produce in small amounts from an integrated rather managed farm. Now its aim is to heal the land by regenerating it and leaving it in a better place than when it was first found. Another goal of Caroola Farm is to produce nutritious and environmentally friendly local food by setting up a range of complementary enterprises. So please welcome Caroola Farm co-owner and operator, Kothe.
Welcome everyone. Caroola Farm is not a rescue farm. I don't want to shock you all. We do produce meat for human consumption. We do so in a sustainable, humane way. And I'm going to tell you a bit about some of our visions for the next 60 years for the RSPCA, which I feel are equally as important in the livestock and farming industry as they are in the domestic animal side of things. Our vision is to see all farm animals have access to open green pastures with natural shade and clean water, like I see it. And I'd love for that to happen. I'd love for not only farmers to know that that's a possible way to raise animals, even if they are for human consumption, but also for legislation and influences from some of the organisations here today to help us move much further in that direction. So, farm animals are produced for meat, milk, fibre, eggs, things like that. There has been a move over the last, I don't know, at least 10 years, perhaps longer, toward free-range production of such things, particularly with reference to the poultry and pork industries. However, what many of you may not be aware of is that, and I don't have the actual percentage, it's probably not available, the percentage of beef finished in feedlots in Australia, I'm going to say 80%, I reckon it's much, much higher. Conventionally, you would grow cattle out to a certain weight and send them into a feedlot system before they're then slaughtered for human consumption. There is no real grass-fed industry, and there has been some move toward having certification for it, but for those of us that grow our beef on grass, it's like, well, why do we need to pay that? They should be paying to have it in the feedlot. They should be paying, something to not have it certified that way. On Caroola Farm we grow beef, sheep, limited numbers of pork, true free-range chickens, ducks and turkeys. It's a small farm and we only manage small numbers. I think that we really need to move in the next 60 years totally away from factory farming of meat and egg products. There is no reason, the only reason that the intensive factory farming industries have flourished is that to provide cheap, which doesn't always equal nutritious, meat to a growing population that is growing its consumption of meat. We eat too much meat. I'm a meat farmer, I'm telling you, we eat too much meat. We really need to think about animal welfare in that equation. That processing tens of thousands of chickens a day that are kept inside at 250,000 per hectare is not a humane way or an ethical way to raise meat that we then eat. So what we would advocate is a total move away from intensive farming of meat and egg and milk products that farmers go back to the smaller numbers that are managed on pasture, but managed on pasture so that they're moved to fresh pasture, that they have access to diversity in pasture, which then provides some of the natural minerals and other preventative health measures that are not available when you're in an intensive system and you're basically importing grain. We'd like to see clean water, low stress animal management, which doesn't happen today, not in a feedlot certainly, and not even in many of our sale yards. Cattle are trucked in and put into yards and held there overnight to sell then onto feedlots and butchers and so forth. It's becoming more centralised. You're finding local sale yards closing, local abattoirs closing, and things like the Central Tablelands Livestock Exchange, where it's a mass sale yard. I wouldn't like to be an animal in there. As I mentioned, pigs and poultry in particular are two areas where over the last, I don't know how many years, there's just been, it's a total disregard for their natural behavioural requirements. These animals don't naturally exist in sheds, much less the space that they're given in our intensive farms. Chickens are forest animals from Asia and actually would roost naturally in trees. Pigs, they need to dig, they need to wallow, they need to, be free to do whatever they want, really. And I see no reason why we can't farm that way. I see no reason why we can't return to the way these animals were farmed in the olden days and the respect they were given as part of the responsibility of being a farmer. Sure, we need to provide them with security and safety and housing and clean bedding, etc. Our chickens, for example, on our farm are in mobile shelters. They have no fences around them, so off they go during the day, and they come back at night and go inside by themselves. We then go and shut the door for fox protection. We have Marama dogs to help with that as well. So certainly there's some housing, etc. requirements for different types of animals. But we certainly don't keep them inside, and I see no reason why we should. We farm our larger animals on a holistic management basis, which is savoury. It's a herding type arrangement, which is how animals would behave in the wild. They would travel as a herd through a pasture and then move on to the next one. So we take some learnings from that. We, to some extent, have mixed flocks, so our alpacas and sheep and cattle are all in together. We keep chickens and pigs and things separate, but we often follow them around. Again, that's a disease control issue, trying to break worm cycles and so forth. We believe they should be able to do what they want to do naturally, all of the animals, and we also believe in minimal or no intervention. We would call what we do ethical or humane. There is a standard in, I think it's actually across all classes of livestock, but particularly pig and poultry, humane choice, which is certified through the Humane Society International. And it's really focusing on the quality of life of these animals, that whilst they're grown for meat and they're grown for human consumption, they still deserve to have the quality of life that we all do. There's another certification organisation called Proof, which is pasture raised on open fields. So whilst we're growing organically, we also adhere to the Humane Choice certification, in that if an animal did require veterinary care, then we would do that and take it out of organic production, so we don't sort of just get blinkered and say, oh, we can't treat them. But we would advocate no debeaking, wing clipping, tail docking, nose rings, not holding poultry inside for 20 hours a week. We don't castrate. I understand that's a different issue in domestic animals, and I like some of the suggestions that were offered before. So if we're talking about raising animals for meat, unfortunately the other end of it is an abattoir facility. It is not legal in Australia to sell meat that has not been processed in an abattoir. We can process on farm for home consumption, as can anybody else, so I could sell you a live chicken and you could process it yourself humanely at home. But in the meantime, we need local abattoirs in order to provide that whole chain of custody of humane management. And what used to exist throughout Australia was very small local sale yards and very small local abattoirs, and they're all disappearing. I think there'd be big demand for one in the ACT region, both on the small scale poultry and the larger scale cattle and sheep side of things. What that would provide is less stress for the animals. They're not in massive big pens with masses of other animals, and you're shortening the travel distances required to the abattoir. When you've got animals in large numbers in those situations, you've also got biosecurity issues in terms of people taking diseases back to their farm. Obviously there's animal welfare issues that arise in some of those larger slaughterhouses where there's a lack of personal involvement. I just see a return to what once was there and how we care for our farm animals. So our real vision is that we return to smaller farms, smaller flocks, much more personal animal management, that we're really allowing animals to show us their natural behaviour and giving them the freedom to do that. That we have open farms, that we're transparent about our farming, that we allow people onto the farms, and you're welcome to come to our farm. Really, I think we need to take back responsibility for our animals from a farming point of view.